Cowboy saw the girl being dragged by her hair. He rode in and took her with a... The sun was just beginning to rise over the endless plains, casting golden light across the tall grass that swayed gently in the morning breeze. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the earthy scent of the land and the faint aroma of wildflowers growing along the edges of the trails. On the horizon, a lone figure appeared, a cowboy, riding steadily on a strong brown horse. He moved with purpose, but also with ease, as if he and the horse had a connection deeper than words. Every movement seemed natural, a rhythm honed through years of hard work and quiet mornings like this. The cowboy's name was Jake, though most people in the nearby town simply called him the Man of the Plains. He was not a man of many words, preferring to let his actions speak for him. His life had been simple, shaped by the land he loved and the work he did from sunup to sundown. He had inherited a small ranch from his father, a place where the fences were well kept, the horses were strong and healthy, and the days were long but honest. There was a certain peace in the routine. The sound of horses' hooves on the dirt paths, the lowing of cattle in the distance, and the gentle creak of the wind through the wooden fences. Jake rode along the trail that cut through the heart of his ranch, feeling the morning calm in his chest. This was the time he enjoyed most, before the work of the day began, before the sun climbed high and turned the plains into a harsh, blinding expanse. He could hear the distant call of birds, see rabbits dart through the underbrush, and smell the dew still clinging to the grass. There was a rhythm to it, almost like the land itself was breathing alongside him. Not far from the trail, a young woman was walking toward the small town that lay on the edge of the plains. Her name was Emily, and she was well known in her neighborhood for her kindness and determination. She had grown up in this harsh yet beautiful land, learning early how to take care of herself and those around her. Her family had faced hard times, and she had often been the one to find ways to keep them afloat. She worked in the town, helping with errands, running small jobs for the local shops, and occasionally assisting neighbors who were too busy or too old to manage on their own. Despite the challenges, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, a soft but steady determination that made her seem stronger than most people gave her credit for. As Emily walked along the dirt path, she kept her eyes on the horizon, enjoying the quiet of the morning. The sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and she could see the tops of the distant hills glowing with the first light of the day. She adjusted the strap of her bag over her shoulder, feeling the weight of her small but important belongings. There was a sense of freedom in these early hours, a feeling that anything was possible before the day fully began. She had no idea that today something unexpected and dangerous was about to disturb this calm. Jake continued along his trail, noticing small details that most people might miss. He saw the tracks of a rabbit in the soft earth, the flicker of a hawk high above, and the subtle signs that another rider might have passed this way recently. His eyes were sharp, trained by years of experience to notice the small signs of change in the land. There was a certain satisfaction in this awareness, a sense that he could read the story of the plains just by paying attention. It was then that something unusual caught his eye. In the distance, near a clump of trees where the trail curved slightly, he noticed movement that didn't match the rhythm of the land. At first it looked like the wind playing with the branches, but then he saw it more clearly, a figure struggling, stumbling, as if being pulled along against their will. Jake's heart tightened. He couldn't see every detail from this distance, but something about the scene felt wrong. His instincts told him to be careful, but also to act. Emily, unaware of the eyes watching her from afar, continued on her way. She hummed softly to herself, thinking of the tasks she would complete once she reached the town. She had no idea that danger was approaching, danger that would test her courage in a way she had never imagined. The air suddenly felt heavier, and the soft rustling of the grass seemed to amplify the tension in the morning. Jake tightened his grip on the reins, his horse responding instantly to his command. He urged the animal forward, moving faster now, the hooves thundering against the ground. As he drew closer, the scene became clearer. A man was grabbing Emily, pulling her roughly, his grip harsh and unyielding. Her hair caught in his hand as she struggled, her cries barely carrying over the sound of the wind and the horse's pounding hooves. Jake's chest tightened, a mix of anger and concern surging through him. He had faced danger before, had seen people hurt and unfairly treated, but something about this moment felt urgent in a new way. He focused on the task at hand, reach the girl safely, stop the man, and get her to safety. Every second counted, and there was no room for hesitation. The distance closed rapidly. Emily struggled with all her strength trying to free herself, but the man was strong and determined. Her bag fell to the ground, forgotten, and the harsh tugging of her hair made it hard for her to think clearly. Fear mingled with a desperate hope that someone would come to help. At that moment, she didn't know that help was already riding toward her. Jake arrived just as the man began to notice the approaching figure. With a commanding voice and the presence of someone who had faced danger countless times, Jake shouted, "Let her go!" The sound was sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. The man hesitated, surprised by the sudden appearance of someone stronger and faster than he had expected. Emily's eyes widened as she saw the cowboy riding straight toward them. For a brief moment, fear mixed with hope. This stranger might be the answer to her prayers. She tried to steady herself, gripping the grass and the earth beneath her feet, wishing she could move faster, wishing she had the strength to help herself. Jake's horse leaped forward, covering the last few yards in seconds. With careful timing, he maneuvered between Emily and the attacker, creating a barrier that forced the man to release her. Emily stumbled into Jake's protective space, catching herself against the horse. The man glared at them, but he seemed unsure now, aware that he was facing someone capable and determined. Jake dismounted quickly, standing firmly in front of Emily, his presence strong and unwavering. He didn't speak much. His eyes and stance said, "Enough." The man realized that this confrontation was not one he could easily win. After a tense moment, he backed away, muttering under his breath, and finally fled, disappearing into the trees and the distance beyond. Emily's breathing was heavy, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked up at Jake, her eyes filled with relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come." "You're safe now," he said simply. His tone was calm, but there was an undeniable firmness that made it clear he meant every word. He helped Emily to steady herself, checking that she wasn't hurt. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he added, guiding her toward his horse. As they rode away together, the morning sun now higher in the sky, the plains seemed to regain their calm, though the memory of danger lingered. Emily held on tightly, feeling the rhythm of the horse beneath her, and began to understand the quiet heroism of the man beside her. He didn't boast or demand thanks. He simply acted when it mattered most. The ride continued through the open land, the wind blowing softly against their faces. Emily's mind was still racing, trying to process everything that had happened, while Jake kept his focus on the trail and their safety. There was a sense of quiet connection, built on trust and the shared experience of surviving danger. By the time they reached the edge of Jake's ranch, the sun was high, the light bright and warm. Emily stepped down from the horse, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet, and looked around at the safe haven that awaited her. Jake watched quietly, making sure she was steady before turning his attention back to the ranch, the horses, and the land he loved. The morning had begun with calm and routine, but it had quickly turned into a test of courage and strength. Emily had faced danger, and Jake had risen to the occasion without hesitation. Both had been reminded of the unpredictability of life, and of the quiet bravery that often goes unnoticed until it is needed most. As Emily prepared to step into the safety of the ranch and the protection it offered, she felt a sense of gratitude and respect for the man who had come to her aid. And Jake, as he watched her take the first steps toward feeling safe again, felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had done what was right, without fanfare, without expectation, simply because it needed to be done. The plains stretched endlessly around them, calm once more, but with the memory of the morning's events etched into the hearts of both the cowboy and the young woman. Life on the plains would continue, and the challenges of the world would persist, but in this moment courage and humanity had prevailed. And that was enough. The sun had climbed higher, burning away the morning mist and bathing the plains in warm light. But for Emily, the calm of the morning had completely vanished. Her heart was still racing from the sudden danger she had barely escaped, and her hands shook as she held on to Jake's horse. Every shadow seemed sharper now, every sound a warning. She tried to steady her breathing, but it wasn't easy. Jake, aware of her fear, spoke softly but firmly. "You're okay. You're safe now." His voice was steady, a comforting anchor in the whirlwind of emotions she was experiencing. Emily looked at him, still trembling, and nodded. She didn't speak. Words felt impossible. All she could do was grasp the reins of the horse and trust him. They rode along a narrow trail that wound through the hills, the horse's hooves crunching on the hard-packed dirt. Jake's eyes scanned the surrounding landscape constantly. The plains were vast, open, and unforgiving, but that very openness allowed him to notice any movement from a distance. He needed to make sure the man who had attacked Emily didn't come back. Every instinct he had told him to remain alert. Emily's mind raced as they moved. She tried to understand what had just happened, the sheer randomness of danger. One moment she had been walking along the trail, thinking about her errands in town, and the next moment she had been pulled roughly by a stranger. She had felt powerless, scared, and desperate. Yet now, with Jake riding beside her, she felt a spark of safety, a reminder that there were people who acted bravely when it mattered most. The cowboy kept a steady pace, slow enough to keep Emily calm, but fast enough to put distance between them and the threat. He had seen too many accidents and incidents in these parts, and he knew that the plains could hide danger even when they seemed empty and peaceful. His focus was sharp, every sense alert. He noticed the subtle shift in the wind, the rustle of leaves in a pattern that suggested movement. He could tell that someone might be watching from afar, waiting for a chance, and that made him all the more cautious. As they crested a small hill, Emily caught her first real breath since the attack. Below them stretched a small valley with a sparkling creek running through it. The water caught the sunlight and reflected it in glimmering patterns that danced across the grass. For a brief moment, the beauty of the land calmed her. It reminded her that life could still hold peaceful moments, even when danger lurked nearby. But there was no time to linger. Jake guided the horse down the slope carefully, making sure Emily didn't lose her balance. The creek was shallow, but the rocks beneath the water were slippery. Emily gripped the saddle tightly, feeling the gentle sway of the horse as it navigated the uneven terrain. She realized that she had to trust him completely. There was no other choice, and she did. Suddenly, Jake spotted movement near a grove of trees at the edge of the valley. His jaw tightened, and he leaned slightly forward on the horse. "Stay close," he whispered to Emily, his voice calm but full of urgency. Emily's heart jumped. She could barely see through the branches, but she knew instinctively that he had seen something dangerous. The thought of the man returning sent a shiver down her spine. The cowboy moved closer to the trees, keeping the horse low and quiet, almost like a shadow slipping across the land. Emily held her breath, her knuckles white as she gripped the reins. Every sound, the chirp of a bird, the rustle of leaves, felt amplified. She could feel the tension in Jake's muscles, the way he was ready to act at a moment's notice. His presence was both reassuring and a reminder of the danger still surrounding them. A sudden crack of a branch made Emily flinch. She turned to Jake, eyes wide. He nodded toward the tree, signaling her to stay calm. Slowly, carefully, they approached the edge of the grove. Peeking through the branches, Jake spotted the man who had attacked Emily. He was crouched low, perhaps waiting for another opportunity, his gaze scanning the trail behind him as if he expected someone else to arrive. Jake assessed the situation quickly. He understood the man's behavior, the hesitation, the scanning, the patience. It was clear the man intended to cause trouble again if given the chance. But Jake was not about to let that happen. His plan was simple: create a distraction, get Emily out of danger, and leave the man with no chance to act. He nudged the horse forward slightly, making a soft noise to catch the man's attention. The man turned sharply, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Jake. For a brief moment, he hesitated, unsure of what to do next. That hesitation was all Jake needed. With a swift, calculated motion, he guided the horse between Emily and the man, putting himself in a protective position. Emily's eyes widened as she realized the seriousness of the moment, but she trusted Jake completely. The man took a step back, realizing he was outmatched. He raised his hand slightly, not in surrender, but in caution. "You don't know who you're messing with," he muttered, his voice low and threatening. Jake didn't respond with words. His steady stance, firm grip on the reins, and calm gaze said everything needed. He wasn't about to let this man harm Emily again. Emily felt her heart pounding, but she also felt a strange sense of courage rising inside her. She had survived the first attack, and now she was witnessing someone willing to protect her without hesitation. It was a powerful reminder that even in dangerous situations, people could act with bravery and care. The man finally backed away, muttering under his breath as he disappeared into the trees. Jake watched him go, ensuring he didn't return, before turning his attention fully to Emily. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. Emily shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "No, I think I'm okay," she replied, her voice trembling but filled with relief. Jake gave a small nod. "Good. Let's keep moving. We're not completely safe yet." He guided the horse along the trail, making sure to keep the grove of trees between them and the open plains where the man might reappear. Emily rode closely, holding onto the saddle with both hands, still processing the adrenaline and fear that coursed through her body. As they rode, Jake spoke in calm tones, helping Emily focus on the trail rather than the fear. "Keep your eyes on the path, and try to relax your grip. The horse can feel your tension, and it will make the ride harder," he advised. Emily listened carefully, taking deep breaths and slowly allowing her body to adjust to the rhythm of the horse. She realized that staying calm and focused was her best chance at feeling safe again. The trail wound through hills and valleys, each turn bringing new challenges. Rocks, uneven ground, and low branches required careful navigation. Jake handled the horse with skill, ensuring Emily stayed balanced and secure. He offered occasional words of encouragement, reminding her that she was doing well and that they would reach a safe place soon. Along the way, Emily's mind began to clear. She thought about her family, her friends in the town, and how worried they would be if they knew what had happened. She also thought about the stranger who had attacked her, what had motivated him, why he had targeted her. The questions were overwhelming, but she pushed them aside for the moment, focusing instead on the present and the man riding beside her who had saved her life.
Jake noticed her thoughts and offered quiet reassurance. "We'll worry about the rest later."
"Right now, our goal is to get you somewhere safe," he said firmly. Emily nodded, grateful for his wisdom and experience. It was comforting to know that he had faced danger before and knew how to handle it without panic. They finally reached a small ridge that overlooked a hidden valley. In the distance, a modest ranch appeared, surrounded by wooden fences and grazing horses. It was Jake's home, a place of safety and familiarity. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. The sight of the ranch, with its sturdy buildings and open fields, reminded her that there were safe places in the world, and that some people were willing to protect others without expecting anything in return. As they descended toward the ranch, Jake guided the horse carefully, pointing out safe paths and obstacles. Emily followed his instructions closely, feeling a growing sense of trust and gratitude. The threat of the attackers seemed far behind them now, and the beauty of the land around them began to reassert itself. Birds sang from the trees, the wind rustled through the grass, and the sun warmed their backs. By the time they reached the ranch gate, Emily's fear had begun to fade, replaced by a deep sense of appreciation for the man who had risked so much to ensure her safety. She looked at Jake, and for the first time since the attack she smiled, a small, tentative smile, but one filled with relief and gratitude. Jake returned the smile briefly, then turned his attention to securing the horse and leading Emily toward the safety of the ranch house. "We'll make sure you're okay inside," he said gently. "Take a few minutes to rest." "You've been through a lot." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of the morning's events settling on her shoulders. She was exhausted, but she also felt stronger for having survived and for having someone protect her when it mattered most. Inside the ranch house, Emily found warmth, comfort, and safety. The simple, cozy interior, filled with the scent of fresh wood and clean linens, offered a sharp contrast to the tension and fear of the morning. Jake made sure she had a drink of water, helped her sit down, and gave her a moment to gather her thoughts. As she rested, Emily reflected on what had happened. She realized that courage came in many forms: the bravery of the attacker, the desperation in her own struggle, and the quiet, steady courage of the cowboy who had intervened without hesitation. That courage had saved her life, and she would never forget it. Jake watched her with quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had done what was right. He didn't seek praise or recognition, he simply acted because it needed to be done. In the stillness of the ranch, with the threat finally behind them, both of them could begin to process the morning's events and prepare for whatever came next. Though the plains stretched endlessly outside, vast and wild, Emily now knew that she had allies, that bravery and kindness existed even in the most unexpected moments, and for Jake, the morning had reinforced the simple truth that sometimes doing the right thing meant risking everything to protect someone who couldn't defend themselves. The valley below the ranch lay quiet, but Jake's mind remained alert. Even though the immediate danger had passed, he knew the man who had attacked Emily might still be lurking nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. The plains could hide threats in ways most people did not notice, and experience had taught Jake never to let his guard down. He kept a careful eye on the horizon, scanning the tree lines and distant hills, ready for any movement that seemed out of place. Emily sat inside the ranch, catching her breath and trying to calm her racing heart. The safety of the walls around her gave her a sense of relief she had not felt since the morning began. But she also felt a lingering unease. She could not shake the memory of the man's grip on her hair, the fear that had surged through her body, and the desperate hope that someone would come to her rescue. Now that hope had been answered by Jake, but her mind kept returning to the moment when danger had been so close. Jake returned from checking the perimeter of the ranch, his face calm but serious. "We can't stay here too long," he said quietly. "I need to make sure he's not nearby. He might come back if he thinks we've let our guard down." Emily looked at him, understanding the seriousness in his tone. What will you do?" she asked softly. "I'll find him," Jake replied simply. "We need to make sure he can't hurt you again. Stay here and be safe." "I'll be careful." Emily nodded, though fear tightened in her chest. She wanted to follow him, but she knew he was right. It would be safer for her to stay inside the ranch while he handled the situation. Jake saddled his horse again, this time with a sense of purpose. Every movement was deliberate and efficient. He had faced many challenges in his life on the plains, but this situation required more than strength. It required strategy, patience, and calm thinking. He checked his gear, adjusted the reins, and set out toward the area where he had last seen the attacker. As he rode through the open plains, the wind in his face, Jake thought through the possibilities. The man might be hiding, waiting to ambush them, or he might have left entirely. Either way, Jake needed to approach carefully. He slowed his pace when he reached the tree line, dismounting quietly to move on foot where the horse could not give away his position. The grass was tall here, and every step required care to avoid snapping twigs or making noise. Meanwhile, Emily could not sit still in the ranch house. Her mind kept turning over the events of the morning, the attack, Jake's bravery, and the tense ride to safety. She wanted to do something to help, but she knew she had to stay where she was. Instead, she watched from the windows as Jake moved through the fields, admiring his skill and courage. He seemed to move like part of the land itself, blending into the shadows and keeping a constant, careful watch. Hours passed as Jake searched the area. He checked every grove of trees, every fold in the hills, and every shadow where the man might hide. It was a test of patience and endurance, but Jake remained focused. He knew that rushing could make the situation worse. The plains were unforgiving, and one mistake could turn a careful pursuit into disaster. Finally, Jake spotted movement near a cluster of rocks at the far edge of the valley. His heart tightened. The man was there, crouched low, trying to stay hidden while keeping an eye on the ranch. Jake could see the anger and frustration on the man's face, mixed with a hint of fear now that he realized someone was tracking him. Jake took a deep breath, knowing that this confrontation would determine Emily's safety for the rest of the day. Jake approached slowly, keeping low and using the terrain to his advantage. He wanted the man to see that he was serious, that there would be no easy way to escape or continue causing harm. The man spotted him finally and froze, realizing he was no longer in control of the situation. Jake's eyes were steady, focused, and unwavering. There was no anger in them, only determination to protect the young woman who had been in danger. "You don't belong here," Jake said firmly. "Leave and don't come back. If you try anything again, there will be consequences you won't like." The man's jaw tightened. He was clearly not used to being confronted by someone with Jake's experience and calm authority. His previous confidence faltered under Jake's steady gaze. The man attempted to step toward Jake, but Jake anticipated his move. He shifted slightly, using his position to block any aggressive approach. The tension in the air was thick, almost like the plains themselves were holding their breath. Every second felt like a test, a delicate balance between caution and action. Emily, watching from the ranch, felt her chest tighten. She wanted to scream, to run outside, but she knew Jake could handle this better on his own. She prayed silently that he would succeed, her trust in him complete despite the fear gnawing at her heart. After a tense moment, the man realized that he could not intimidate Jake. He took a step back, muttering curses under his breath, and finally turned to leave. Jake did not follow immediately. He waited until the man disappeared into the distant hills before relaxing slightly. He wanted to ensure the threat was truly gone, that Emily would no longer be in danger. Returning to the ranch, Jake found Emily waiting by the window. Her relief was palpable the moment she saw him. "He's gone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jake nodded. "For now. I've made sure he won't be coming back." Emily let out a deep sigh, her body finally relaxing after hours of tension. She ran to the door, hugging Jake in a gesture of gratitude and relief. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jake placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You were brave too," he said quietly. "You stayed calm and trusted me. That mattered just as much as anything else." Emily felt a warmth in his words, a recognition that her courage, small though it might have seemed, had contributed to her own survival. They spent the next hour inside the ranch, catching their breath and sharing quiet conversation. Jake made sure Emily was comfortable, offering water and a place to sit while he kept a watchful eye on the surroundings. The threat had passed, but the memory of it remained, a reminder of how quickly life could change and how important it was to have someone trustworthy by your side. As the afternoon sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the fields, Emily felt a sense of safety settle over her. She realized how much she had relied on Jake, how his presence had transformed fear into hope. She also recognized that bravery could appear in many forms. The quiet strength of someone who acted without hesitation, the careful vigilance of someone who never let down their guard, and the determination to ensure the safety of another person no matter the risk. Jake spoke little, but his actions and steady presence communicated everything. He had faced danger, assessed the situation, and acted with precision and care. Emily felt a profound sense of respect and gratitude, not just for what he had done, but for who he was, someone who understood responsibility, courage, and the importance of protecting others. As evening approached, the ranch became a haven of peace and quiet. The horses grazed calmly in the fields. The wind whispered softly through the trees, and the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily felt the tension of the day slowly ebb away, replaced by a feeling of safety and trust. She knew that the danger was over for now, and that she was in the hands of someone who had her best interests at heart. Jake stayed close, ensuring that no new threat appeared and that Emily could feel secure. They spoke quietly about the day's events, reflecting on what had happened without dwelling on fear or anger. Emily shared her gratitude, and Jake acknowledged her courage, reinforcing a bond built on trust, respect, and shared experience. As night fell and the first stars appeared in the sky, Emily realized that her life had been forever changed by the morning's events. She had faced danger, felt fear, and experienced helplessness, but she had also encountered bravery, protection, and unwavering care. She looked at Jake with a quiet admiration, knowing that this man had stepped in when it mattered most, guided not by recognition or reward, but by the simple principle of doing what was right. Jake, observing the calm of the ranch under the night sky, felt a quiet satisfaction. The danger had been handled. Emily was safe, and the plains stretched endlessly around them, wild yet beautiful. He understood that courage was not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it was about being present, vigilant, and willing to act when it counted. By the end of the evening, both Emily and Jake felt a sense of closure for the day's events. The attacker had been dealt with, safety had been restored, and trust had been reinforced. Though the plains could never be entirely predictable, they now knew that with courage, vigilance, and care, danger could be faced and overcome. Emily went to bed that night with a sense of peace she had not felt since the attack. The memory of the morning lingered, but it was tempered by gratitude, trust, and a new understanding of bravery. She had survived, thanks to the calm, decisive action of the cowboy who had risked so much for her safety. Jake watched over the ranch that night, keeping a quiet vigil. The threat had been neutralized, but he remained alert, knowing that life on the plains required constant awareness. Yet he felt a deep satisfaction, a sense that he had done exactly what was needed. The night was calm, the stars shone brightly, and the world felt, at least for now, safe and balanced once more. The night passed quietly over the ranch, and for the first time since the frightening events began, Emily slept deeply. The soft sound of wind outside the window, the distant movement of horses, and the peaceful stillness of the open plains helped calm her mind. When she woke the next morning, sunlight was gently filling the room, and for a few seconds she forgot everything that had happened. Then the memories slowly returned. The fear, the struggle, and the brave cowboy who had stepped in without hesitation. But this time the memories did not bring panic. Instead, they brought gratitude and a growing sense of strength. Emily stepped outside onto the porch. The air was cool and fresh, and the land stretched endlessly in every direction. Jake was already awake, checking fences and feeding the horses as if nothing unusual had happened. That was just who he was, steady, dependable, never seeking attention. Emily watched him for a moment before walking toward him. "Good morning," she said softly. Jake turned, gave a small nod, and offered a calm smile. "Morning. Feeling better?" "Yes," she replied honestly. "Much better. I think being here helped." "It feels safe. That's what matters," Jake said. "Safety first. Everything else comes later." They walked slowly along the fence line. Emily noticed how carefully Jake observed everything. The ground, the animals, the sky. It wasn't nervousness, it was experience. Years on the plains had taught him to stay aware without being afraid. She admired that quiet strength. As they talked, Emily shared more about her life. She spoke about her family, her responsibilities, and how she had always tried to stay strong even when things were difficult. Jake listened without interrupting. He wasn't the kind of man who gave long speeches, but his attention alone made her feel heard. "You've been through a lot," he said eventually. "But you handled it well. Not everyone keeps their balance in moments like that." "I didn't feel brave. Bravery rarely feels brave while it's happening," Jake replied. "It just feels necessary." She realized courage wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was simply continuing forward, even when fear was present. Later that day, Jake suggested they ride into town. Emily needed to reconnect with her family and let people know she was safe. At first, she hesitated. The thought of returning to the same roads where danger had appeared made her nervous. But Jake's calm presence reassured her. "I'll be right there," he said. "Nothing will happen." They rode side by side across the plains. This time the ride felt different. The same land that had seemed threatening now appeared peaceful again. Birds flew overhead, grass moved gently in the wind, and the sky stretched wide and blue. Emily realized how quickly fear can change perspective, and how quickly safety can restore it. When they reached town, several people recognized Emily immediately. Concern turned into relief when they saw she was safe. She reassured everyone, explaining that she had received help at the right moment. She didn't dramatize anything, she simply expressed gratitude. Jake stayed slightly in the background. He didn't want attention, but word spread quickly about what he had done. People approached him quietly, offering thanks or respectful nods. He accepted their appreciation with humility, never acting as though he had done anything extraordinary. To him, helping someone in danger was simply the right thing to do. Emily visited her family first. The reunion was emotional but peaceful. Her parents were relieved, and their gratitude toward Jake was clear. They thanked him sincerely, and Jake responded with his usual modesty. "She's strong," he told them. "She just needed a little support." After spending some time in town, Emily and Jake began the ride back to the ranch. The sun was starting to lower, painting the sky in warm colors. The journey felt calmer than before. Emily noticed she wasn't gripping the saddle tightly anymore. Her breathing was steady. The fear had loosened its hold. "You're different today," Jake observed. "In a good way, I hope," Emily replied. "Yes, more confident." "I think I learned something," she said. "Bad moments can happen, but they don't have to define everything after." Jake nodded. "Exactly." When they reached the ranch again, evening light covered the fields. Horses grazed peacefully, and the world seemed balanced again. Emily realized she wasn't just recovering physically, she was growing emotionally. The experience, though frightening, had shown her the strength she possessed and the kindness that exists in others. Over the next few days, Emily stayed at the ranch to rest fully. She helped with small tasks, feeding animals, tidying the house, preparing simple meals. These everyday activities helped restore normalcy. Jake appreciated the help but never demanded it. Their interactions became easy, natural, almost like longtime friends. They talked about many things: childhood memories, hopes for the future, lessons learned from hardship. Emily discovered Jake had faced his own challenges over the years. Life on the plains wasn't always easy, yet he had maintained his quiet integrity and willingness to help others. "You could have ignored what you saw that day," Emily said once. Jake shook his head. "Not really. Some moments don't give you that choice. You either act or regret not acting." That simple statement carried deep meaning for her. As weeks passed, Emily gradually returned to her normal routine. But something inside her had shifted. She carried herself with greater confidence, spoke more openly, and worried less about small fears. She knew she had survived something difficult, and that knowledge made her stronger. Jake continued his ranch work as always, but their friendship remained. They visited town together occasionally, shared meals, and supported each other when needed. There was no dramatic declaration, no grand promise, just steady trust and mutual respect. The story of that day eventually became part of local memory. People spoke about courage, quick thinking, and the importance of helping one another. Yet Jake never sought recognition, and Emily never allowed the event to overshadow her entire life. It became a chapter, not the whole book. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch, Emily spoke quietly. "I used to think strength meant never needing help," she said. "Now I think strength also means accepting help when it comes." "That sounds about right, and I'm glad you came when you did. I'm glad I was nearby," he replied. The sky darkened slowly, stars appearing one by one. The plains were peaceful again, just as they had been before everything happened. But Emily knew she was not the same person she had been then. She was stronger, more aware, and more appreciative of the kindness people can show. Life continued, as it always does. There were busy days, quiet evenings, and occasional challenges, but fear no longer controlled her. She had faced danger, found support, and discovered resilience within herself. Jake remained the same steady presence he had always been. His actions spoke louder than words, and his quiet courage left a lasting impression on everyone who knew him. In the end, what stayed with Emily most was not the fear of that day, but the reminder that compassion exists even in unexpected places. One person's willingness to act had changed everything. And sometimes that is enough to restore faith in the world. The plains stretched endlessly beyond the ranch, golden in the fading light, calm and beautiful once more. A reminder that after even the most unsettling storms, peace can return, and life can move forward with renewed strength and hope.